to circle back. We also have recordings where I have previously taught Clean Living Lifestyle Part 1 and Part 2. If you go to the wellness.ua.edu/archives, you can go to the archived webinars and they are there for you. So my name is Abby Horton. I'm an assistant professor here at the Capstone College of Nursing at UA. I am a registered nurse, a certified health and life coach, a Wellbeing ambassador formerly for the Honors College, and your wellness class educator. My email is abby.horton@ua.edu. And if you'd like to reach out with questions, comments, feedback, I'm happy to be a resource to you. So some of the goals we have today are to talk about the clean living lifestyle just as a whole, and then discuss important concepts related to clean living and how clean living can have a health impact on you and your family. And then we want to also teach some specific strategies to adopt a clean living lifestyle. So my disclaimer is that this is just for educational purposes only and doesn't serve as medical advice. I always tell people to focus on what they can control, which usually is your attitude and your effort. Take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Make baby steps. Small progress is still progress. And then always reach out if you have questions or you want to do some more exploration, or maybe you need resources. I'm happy to help you. So, what is clean living lifestyle? Clean living is really just a lifestyle that focuses on intentional, healthy choices in your diet, your lifestyle choices, and your cleaning products. So, anything basically that you use or buy on a regular basis, you want to make sure that you're getting the cleanest, greenest, healthiest product that you can. Whether that's a beauty product, whether that's shampoo, hygiene products, it might be, that you're looking at, even taking it a step further, making sure that your clothing is really good and clean in terms of making sure it doesn't have a lot of chemicals, doesn't have a lot of extra dyes and a lot of extra preservatives that you can have in the fabric of your materials. It even can get as specific as making sure that, you're using wholly organic cotton. I have not gone quite that in deep, in detail with my choices just because it's not budget friendly. So what we're going to try to do today is talk to you about how you can make really small changes that are impactful, that aren't completely kind of throwing everything out and starting over, but it's just making small choices as you run out of a product or as you decide that you are done with a product, then making a healthier, better choice. And so that is what I have been doing for almost the last 11 years. This fall will be 11 years since I started this clean living lifestyle journey, and I'll share more about that as we go along. But it really starts with mindset. I always like to tell people where to start, and I think it's important that you remember that everyone is on a different journey, a different path. And so I'm 11 years ahead of people who might not have even really considered a clean living lifestyle. So if you're joining today and you just have an interest and you haven't really started this journey, or you just knew that this worked with your schedule and you hadn't considered what clean living lifestyle looks like, and you're still doing a very kind of like typical approach to how you buy and how you live, then it would be really overwhelming for you to look at what I do and look at the things that I'm trying and try to do all of that, right? Because I've taken more than a decade to do the things that I've done with my own journey. And I'll share snippets of that just as hopefully information and inspiration for you. But there again, like there are people who are much further along on their journey than me and who have bigger budgets and who have more time. And it can get really hard when you compare yourself because you can kind of have this FOMO, this fear of missing out. But you also can get really overwhelmed with all of the ways in which you could make a different choice that might just be a little bit out of your reach right now. And that's okay because small changes that you make still matter and can still be impactful for your overall health. A lot of people do clean living lifestyle for ethical reasons because they want to help the planet's health, lots of different things like that. But some people are doing it just because of health. And so, you just want to make sure that you kind of understand why you're doing what you're doing. So clean living starts with a mindset. You've got to educate yourself on clean living, read and research before you start your journey, just so that you don't feel like you're completely in the dark. And then be kind to your brain and budget. I think it's so easy to get overwhelmed and to just not do anything. I think that's definitely a common response. It is for me. If I get overwhelmed or I feel like something's out of reach, I'm like, oh, well, what's the point? Why do I even start that? But it's so important to just do what you can with what you have. And then we call it ditch and switch. So where you take one habit or one product at a time, and you just switch out for a cleaner, greener product or a healthier, more impactful habit. And so we'll talk about that. So give yourself some grace during the process and just really treat it like a journey, because it will be helpful for you as you go along to really enjoy the process of becoming cleaner and greener, and not feeling so overwhelmed in the midst of it. So the impact of toxins, it's really concerning to me as as a nurse and as a mom, and all of the things that we encounter on a daily basis. So there are things called xenobiotics or xenoestrogens is another. A lot of chemical compounds that you'll see in drugs and medications, pesticides, other um, chemicals and carcinogens that are foreign to the body and can trigger an immune response or an overreaction. So things that really are in everyday products, like your, plastic water bottles, or, perhaps it's in the dyes in your clothing. It's things that we put on and we do every day and we just don't think about it. And so what happens is these xenobiotics or these xenoestrogens that you can have in these products that we're using every day can exacerbate autoimmune conditions, can exacerbate allergic reactions, can cause inflammation and other issues. And so it can worsen conditions, but it also can cause some conditions in the body. And so some of the things we look at is chronic inflammation, skin problems like acne and rashes, brain fog, sugar imbalances. So your blood sugar can have these kind of wonky spikes where you might eat something and it goes really high, but then instead of kind of going back to your baseline, it can kind of dip really low. And so you can have a lot of those imbalances, and that can cause things like anxiety. It can really cause you to not be able to, kind of eat a balanced meal and, and feel good after. You can have some unstable blood sugars in that way, even if you feel like you're eating well. You can have worsening anxiety and depression and just overall mental health. Weight loss resistance is a huge one, especially because of the inflammation that's on board. You can have a persistent body odor. This is why it can be difficult for people who want to switch to a natural deodorant to do so, just because we don't allow our bodies to sweat sometimes. We have, antiperspirants that really help prevent sweating. We also have a lot of different products that you can use now, even things like using Botox or other fillers to inject under the arm to prevent you from sweating. And so the more that we inhibit sweating, the more toxins we're going to keep on board, because sweating, crying, urinating, bowel movements, all of those kinds of things, kind of the normal body processes, those are all designed to be able to get toxins out of the body. And then you can have thyroid issues, achy muscles and joints, and just overall not feel well. You can have a lot of fatigue. And so that's the impact of toxins. And it's been since 1938 since we've had a law that actually regulated the cosmetics industry at the federal level. And so there's a lot of loopholes and things. And Beautycounter, I'm not affiliated with them. I've used their products, but they have really been one of the first industries within the beauty and cosmetic industry overall that has said, we need to do some advocacy. We need to make sure that the products that are being put out there for us in America are actually safe and are actually helpful. And that they do what they say they're going to do. And so Beautycounter has a never list. And so on the never list, they've listed these chemicals here that they will never use in their products. And so I think that that's really impactful. for you to look at these things and look at the labels on the food that you're eating, on the products that you're buying. And if it's a difficult name for you to pronounce, if it has more than 5 ingredients, if it has, more than 5 or 6 letters, they're going to be things that are probably human made or altered in some way. And so even things like retinol is listed here, some sulfates and things that you see a lot of times in soaps and shampoos. Those are the kinds of things that you want to be on the lookout for. And that can be difficult to track when you're looking for the best bargain or you're looking for the favorite product that you've always used and never have really considered this. But I tell people that it's really important to get mindful about it and to not go and throw out everything after today's call. You might want to, but just look at the labels when you go home today on your moisturizer, on your shampoo, on your deodorant, and look at how many ingredients there are, how many that you can't actually pronounce, and then how many actually appear on the Never list. And I'm going to give you all a couple of resources where you can scan your products if it has a barcode, and you can actually get a rating on how healthy or green your product is. And there are definitely a lot of different factors that go into that. So just because it gets a high rating saying that it's not a healthy product, there are some other considerations. And so I'll tell you about those so you can be on the lookout. So it takes about 26 seconds for anything that you put on your skin to enter your bloodstream. And I think that that's important to know because a lot of times the things that we are okay with putting on our skin are not things that in the equivalent version we would eat or drink and put in our body and consume. But if we put it on our body, we're really putting it in our body. And that's something that 11 years ago, I really had to have a mindset shift around that. And so, of course, all of the things that you put on your body, even if they're clean and green and get the green, kind of check mark that this is an okay product, of course, that doesn't mean that you would actually consume it, right? It doesn't mean that it's edible or drinkable, but you would want to know that the ingredients are clean enough that the equivalent of that in a food or a drink would be something that you would be willing to consume because we are consuming it and it is getting in our body. It's just getting in our body through our skin instead of through our mouth. So I don't know if that's something that resonates with y'all or that's kind of an eye opener for y'all, but for me, that was a big deal to kind of think about that in a different way. So some of the most toxic products in your homes, typically when we do research at the national level, just looking at what are the most toxic products, you may not have all of these at home, but these are the ones that typically rate within the top 10. So water bottles, plastic food containers, particularly if you use a flat plastic food container, you do not want to heat it or get it hot because the chemicals will typically leach out. So don't leave your water bottles in the car, especially in the summer or when it's going to be hot. Don't, microwave your plastic food containers or your styrofoam or the containers that you get takeout in. Carpets, anything that's a carpet or a rug usually has a chemical on them to resist stains and to resist like flame retardant style chemicals to resist heat or fire. Even like kids' pajamas could be one on here that would be really important. So you want to get kids' pajamas that are really fitted to the body, that are almost like a second skin, that don't have flame retardants on there. I know my youngest kids are almost 12, and so I'm a little bit out of the baby game, but when they were younger, when they would get their pajamas from Target, for example, it would have tags letting you know if it had flame retardants or if not. And the ones that didn't have flame retardants were the ones that were close to the body. And so those were the ones that I bought for my kids. They weren't always the cutest. Or the favorites because sometimes you as a kid you want the big nightgown or something like that, but those are going to be the things that because they're not close to the body, there's some national and federal laws that say that kids pajamas in particular, because they're so at risk for house fires, that they have to have flame retardants on their PJs because a lot of fires happen at night. And so make the choices that make sense for you, but those really snug fitting pajamas that are made from good quality fabrics, organic cotton obviously would be the best, but that's kind of the gold standard and they're expensive. That's a consideration. That would be on this top 10 list if I had top 10. 4 is pizza boxes, and that's because of the coating that they put on them to protect them from disintegrating because the pizza is so hot. And so there's a lot of chemicals on those pizza boxes. And now a couple of times a month, you're going to see pizza boxes at the Horton house. We do a lot of homemade pizza nights on Friday night. Friday night is always pizza night at our house, but a couple of times a month, 1 to 2 times, we'll get pizza takeout and we have the boxes. So it's not that you're going to eliminate all of these toxins. It's just that you're making a mindful choice, and you're educating the people in your house that, like, hey, we're making a choice to have takeout pizza tonight. This is not the best box, but it's not the best situation for toxins, but we're making this choice. Popcorn in the microwave, particularly the kind that just the traditional bags of popcorn that you just put in, are not healthy for the same reason. All of that coating, that film that you get, it's not just butter that you're getting off of those popcorn bags, but it's also the coating of the chemical to be able to protect the bag to be able to be microwaved. Super, super toxic. These are not in any particular order, but the pizza boxes, the carpet, and the microwave popcorn would probably be some of the worst offenders. And so I actually don't eat popcorn anymore. It's just a choice that I made. Popcorn is not really the greatest for gut health for some people. There are a lot of tooth injuries that happen from eating popcorn that are the kernels unpopped, or the popcorn itself is just particularly hard. And then you've got the added chemicals. Of course, you can make popcorn on the stove, and you can get different other appliances that make popcorn in a safer way. But for me, that's kind of 3 strikes, right? You've got the teeth injury issue with the kernels. You've got the gut health, which is not great for most people's gut health. And then you've got the chemical laden part. So I'm kind of a 3 strikes, you're out rule when it comes to kind of my clean living lifestyle. So for me, popcorn is not such a favorite of mine that I can go without. So it's been years and years and years since I've actually made and eaten popcorn. But my kids still love it. It's not something that I, kind of banned from the house, but it is something that I talk to them about. Hand sanitizer is also one. It has triclosan in it for the most part. Some other, hand sanitizers don't have those kind of extra chemicals in there. There's some green, clean ones, like Dr. Bronner's is a really good brand. You can get it at local health food stores here in Tuscaloosa, but you can also order it online. Theirs is a great one, but most traditional hand sanitizers are going to have chemicals in there. Sofas and other furniture, just because, again, of all of the chemicals, of all of the protectants and sealants, that's going to be something that you need to be mindful of. For people who do a lot of DIY painting of furniture, that was very popular, I feel like, in the early 2000s. And I did my fair share of painting furniture and, making, those kinds of DIY projects a part of my weekends. And so anything that you're doing with furniture or paint, there's kind of that risk of having those extra chemicals on board, but also the sofas and furnitures and even mattresses. Mattresses are really important to consider having a cleaner option, just because you spend so much time on them, usually, hopefully, 7 to 8 hours a day. And so you want your bedding and your mattresses and things to be as clean as possible. And then in terms of food, strawberries, just because you see all of the pores on the strawberries, it's really easy for chemicals, pesticides, and other things to actually get down into those little grooves on the strawberries. And so we're going to talk about how to clean those. All right, so other toxins, things like fluoride, that's a controversial one because your dentist and dental hygienist are probably going to tell you need fluoride. There's a lot of literature coming out that says that fluoride can be a neurotoxin, and some people are more sensitive to that than others. And so I'm not going to tell you not to use fluoride. We did go a period of time where we did not use fluoride in our house, and our kids are more sensitive to needing fluoride or something that's a cavity prevention in their toothpaste. I am not as sensitive to that, but my kids are. And so it's very, very individualized, even within families. So do some research and make your own choices about all of this. Again, this is just educational. And a dentist is probably not ever going to tell you not to use fluoride, but biological dentists might. And so there are a couple of great options out there. I'll give you some suggestions. Risewell is one that I really enjoy for me personally. It's not quite enough if you don't have your kids at an age or other people who might not be as diligent in brushing and flossing their teeth. It's not a great choice for that. So diesel fuel, you always want to make sure that when you're filling up your car with gas that you get in and close the door and that you don't stand by the pump while it's pumping. You want to make sure that you're not having BPA of any kind or what I call BPA cousins in your water bottles and food containers. And so we are mostly a glass family, not a plastic family anymore. Making sure that if you have a house that would be in the age category, so like early 70s to later, especially the 50s and 60s, there might be lead in your paint. So before you change your paint in your house, you might want to have a lead test done to make sure that you're doing that safely. Mercury in fish and other chemicals in fish can be really challenging. There's challenges with farm-raised fish and there's challenges with wild-caught fish. Wild-caught fish is typically still better than farmed raised just because farmed raised are usually given a lot of grains and things to make them gain weight. They might be given antibiotics because they're in such close quarters. And so wild raised fish is going to be better, but you want to make sure that you're not eating bottom feeders. So, a lot of times people will go to, catfish or salmon or some of the other popular fishes that will actually have a lot of chemicals in them and a lot of plastics. Microplastics is a big one for fish because our oceans and waterways are so polluted. And so you're getting a lot of microplastics in your fish. One estimate is that we eat, one of the studies I saw, a credit card's worth of plastic a week in the things that we're eating because of what we're eating has eaten the plastic. And that's really something to consider when you're wanting to make some healthy choices because fish is great for omega-3s and for improving your cholesterol, but you have to make sure that you're actually picking a healthy fish. Over 4,000 chemicals are in things like vapes and cigarettes and cigars and other tobacco products. Exhaust and pollution. So you want to make sure that when you're idling your car or you're in a line or you're doing something else where the car is just kind of sitting with exhaust and pollution, you want to make sure that you roll your windows up. It's probably okay in towns like ours where there's not a ton of traffic, not like a big city where we have a lot of smog and fog situations, but with the windows being down, you want to make sure that you're not breathing in exhaust. Alcohol, there is now a lot of people saying, especially in the psychiatric and mental health and neurological world, that there is no safe level of alcohol. And so Dr. Daniel Amen is a clinical psychologist who does a lot of brain studies, a lot of MRIs, and he personally believes and professionally believes, after having studied a lot of MRIs, that there is no safe level of alcohol, even though you will see recommendations for like 1 to 3 drinks for females and you might see 3 to 6 for males, just depending on age and stage of life and other factors. So there are many, many kind of factors that play into alcohol consumption. But for a lot of people who study brain health now, they're saying that there's no safe level and they recommend people not to drink alcohol because there are a lot of issues with having preservatives, pesticides, and even other chemicals on board. Pesticides can be problematic. People can be very sensitive. For us personally, I do not have any pesticides sprayed within the home. Our family is very sensitive to those kinds of chemicals and scents and toxins. And so I do have our house sprayed outside because it is important for like ticks and things like that to be kept at bay. But I don't have them do it inside because especially when our kids were little and we're on the floor. So think kids 5 and younger are going to be on the floor more than anything else. You don't want them in the dirt from the outside. So if you can do a no shoes in the house policy, that's really helpful, especially the younger your kids are, the more in the floor that they are. And, you want to be mindful of having those pesticides sprayed in the house. Because they can be really overwhelming. So if you do have it sprayed, something that I always consider is making sure that the house airs out and that people are not in the home when it's being sprayed and that, there's some time between it being sprayed and you coming in. If you walk into your house and you can smell that pesticide smell, then for me, someone like me, I would feel like it was too strong, and I probably would give some more time outside of the home. Flame retardants, like I mentioned, those can even be on fabric, chairs, and furniture. The dry cleaning solutions that are used, there are other options for dry cleaning, and so we typically do not purchase clothes that have a dry cleaning need. Or if we do, we make sure that we only dry clean a couple of times a year, and we make sure that we take the plastic bag off of the dry cleaning immediately as soon as we get it, so that we can air out the clothes before we take it into the house, and that's not getting trapped in the bag. Now, if you're like me, when I grew up, my parents would bring home the dry cleaning and it would just live in the plastic bag. But that's not the best practice. We know better now. And then things that spray, if it's an aluminum can, if it has a paraben, if it's an aerosolized spray, that is not the most helpful. It makes me really nervous when I see people spraying aerosolized SPF on their kids at the beach, because then it if you're downwind from it, which we usually are, it's just our luck. We're breathing it in, it's getting in our eyes, our nose, our mouth, and we're kind of like secondhand aerosolized spray SPF users. But typically, especially young kids, it's easy to spray that on the kids, but you're kind of absorbing that into everything. And so I think lotion is a better option, with something like a stick for the face. And yes, it's very inconvenient. I have 5 kids, so I know how inconvenient it is to slather SPF on. It's much easier to just spray it, but it's not the healthiest option. And it doesn't usually last as long either. Food, pesticides, and chemicals, and then drinking out of canned drinks can be really, difficult. And some people take this literally. I think it's just a misunderstanding in how we explain things, but it doesn't matter if you pour the drink out of the can. Some friends thought that that was okay. It's not literally drinking from the can. It's that what you're drinking in the can, whether you pour it into a glass or some other container, it has probably gotten hot in transit from point A to point B to your grocery store to your refrigerator. And drinking that then has probably leached out whatever is in the can. And so having that tin, or even some of the cans like, green beans or something like that, produce in a can have PBA in them. They're lined in them. And so that food has probably had some leaching there. So I know that that probably did not sound very happy. So we're going to get to some happier slides. But I just want y'all to think about all of the ways that you can have exposures. Even just something as simple as walking outside, depending on what city you live in, can have some of those exposures. So what do? You clean your food really well. So fill a bowl with 1 solution of a cup of vinegar to 4 parts water. So it doesn't have to exactly be a cup of vinegar, but for however much vinegar you put in 4 parts of water. And then you add something like Celtic sea salt or Himalayan pink salt until the water is cloudy. And then you add in your fruit and vegetables to soak in that until you start to see and feel that the layers of like film and dirt and grime and anything else that may be on their chemicals start to dissipate, start to wash off of those fruits and vegetables. And then when you do that, rinse with cold water under, turn your faucet on under cold water, rinse those, dry really well, because if you don't dry it really well, it's going to mold. And I've noticed that our fruits and vegetables have started molding and kind of rotting even faster than normal. And then you would store, ideally you would put some paper towels down in a clear glass container, line the bottom with a couple of paper towels, and then that will soak up any extra water that or solution that you didn't get off, and that should keep your food pretty well protected. I actually learned that recipe from my OBGYN 12 years ago now, when I was pregnant with my last set of twins. He was one of the very first people that really in the medical community started teaching me about healthy, clean living lifestyle. and that was in 2012. And then in 2013, I ended up, because of a series of medical problems that I was having to have a hysterectomy. And when I went in for my hysterectomy that month, a friend reached out to me about, I've noticed you've had some health problems. I just wanted to offer you some resources that I have found helpful for me and my health and my family. And our kids were about the same ages. And so, because I knew I was going into this hysterectomy at the age of 27, I was really concerned about where my trajectory for my health and wellness was going. And so that's when I really started taking steps to change my lifestyle. And so it has been quite the journey, but those two kind of things going hand in hand, my OBGYN actually did my hysterectomy. And so for about a year and a half, he really walked me through and taught me all about how to take care of your body well, how to make clean living lifestyle changes. And so it took a decade, but that's what kind of led to this class. So first steps is really what you've done. You've started the journey just by showing up today. I always tell people, especially my students, like showing up is half the battle. Always applaud yourself when you show up, even when you didn't feel like it, because that's a lot of the work. And then a couple of other practical things. You can download the app called Think Dirty. It will actually scan, if you use the barcode feature, you can scan your barcodes and get ratings on your products. And that's really, really helpful rather than you having to personally read the ingredient list. Reduce your plastic use. Open your windows at home when you can. Stop using traditional candles and fragrances. There are a lot of clean products out there now. There are, definitely cleaner versions of candles, like using a soy candle, looking at like beeswax candles that have really clean burns on their wicks. Fragrances, you really just have to be careful with the ones that you get and look at the fragrance list, because there are a lot of products that we call greenwashed, where it looks like it's a healthy brand, but it isn't. Mrs. Meyer's is an example of that. It is not a very clean brand, but it is one of the kind of ones that you immediately think of, and it's not a great choice. But it's better than some others. The thing that I don't like about greenwash products like Mrs. Meyer's is that it's not really that much more healthy than something like a traditional cleaning product, but it's usually very expensive. It can be like 1 to 2 to 2.5 times what you would pay, and it's not really a much healthier option. And so that's my biggest kind of ethical challenge with these greenwash products. Choose organic when you can. I have 5 kids, 3 are teenagers, 2 are preteens. We cannot buy everything organic, but there is a list of, kind of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So meaning that if it's on the Dirty Dozen list, you want to try to prioritize it being bought as an organic product. If it's a Clean 15, then, if you need to budget, which I think most of us do, then those are less prioritized in terms of like actually buying that product as an organic product. So things like a pineapple. A pineapple has a really thick skin on it, and so it's going to take more chemical and things like that to be able to actually get into the pineapple itself. Whereas like a strawberry is going to definitely be on the Dirty Dozen because it's got such a thin skin and it's got all of those pores that you can see. So that's just kind of a practical example. And they update through the Environmental Working Group. They have a great website and app as well. They update that Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen every year, and it usually changes slightly. So avoid aluminum foil, try air cleaning house plants. So things like, there's a couple of plants that you can get that you can list. One is going to be, a helpful thing to have in each room. So at least one air cleaning plant. You can swap to healthier cleaning products. You can limit the use of your microwave. A lot of people who take this to like what some people would say is the extreme, but probably is really healthy. A lot of people just take their microwaves out altogether. We would not survive without our microwave, but that is a choice that a lot of people make. Switching out your cleaning products, your beauty products, your hygiene products, washing fabrics before you use them. Really diligently try to make sure that all fabrics that we wear are washed. And so Not just because of the dyes and things like that, but if you saw how things were constructed in factories and how they were shipped, you probably really wouldn't want to put it on your body without washing it. Usually, if you set it, you can wash it in hot water, make sure the colors are alike, but washing it in hot water will usually set the dye. Sometimes the fabric needs to be set in cold water. It just depends on the type of fabric, but there are a lot of specific instructions you can get online so that you can set the dye, and that way when you wash it in the future, you may not use that particular setting, but it helps to lock in the color so that that dye is not constantly leaching out on your skin. Definitely think about using a filtered water bottle or a water pitcher to use with your water bottle. Be cautious about, pesticides in the home, like I mentioned. Ditch and switch your products one at a time, and then don't be greenwashed, which is easy to do. I was greenwashed a lot in the beginning as I was learning. And then some things like entry mats at your doors is a first line of defense. Obviously, asking people to take off their shoes is helpful. Consider the furniture and the building materials that you're using. Try to use low or zero VOC paints. Keeping the humidity low is really helpful as well. Very difficult to do in Alabama winter and summer weather, but just try to keep the humidity at optimal levels. There are humidifiers that you can get and ways to measure that. We are not at that level at the Horton House, but it is important because of mold, especially in the South in the summers. Dusting frequently is helpful. There are a lot of different chemicals and toxins that will, kind of get trapped in the dust. So you may want to wear a mask as you dust if you're dusting with something that will stir that up. Prioritizing a non-toxic mattress and bedding. There are a lot of options out there. Switching to glass whenever you can, so glass over plastic. I know I was the generation of plastics makes it possible. That was a tagline when I was a kid. And in our elementary school, one of our sponsors was actually a plastics manufacturer. So that was just ingrained in my mind. And it made a lot of things possible. It helped us get to the moon. That was only the fun story that they told us, but we don't want plastics in our body. And then avoid nonstick cookware. So making sure that if your pans are starting to flake or you're using nonstick or Teflon coated pans, try to switch those out. That is a very expensive switch, but it's an important one because if those are flaking, then you're getting those flakes of Teflon in your body, and that's going to be hard for you to process that. Using natural hand soap, we actually make our own, so we use filtered water, and we use Dr. Bronner's Castile soap, about a tablespoon, and then about a teaspoon of vitamin E oil that we just purchase from the local health food store, and then whatever essential oils, 5 to 6 drops of an essential oil, and get a pump dispenser. Give it a good shake, and you have a very inexpensive homemade soap, and it lasts for a good little while. So it's not expensive, and it's a healthy option, and it's cheaper than buying a healthy soap. Wash with clean laundry products. So I really like to use Drops. It's DROPPS. It is the cleanest, most convenient brand that I have found because a lot of clean laundry brands are actually liquids. And with washing clothes for 7 people and a dog, it's just not fun to do that in a liquid. I like to have a pod, and their pods are actually made from cellulose, and so it's environmentally friendly, unlike things like Tide Pods that are plastic based. So anyway, with that being said, you have to be careful, especially when you're ordering them in the summer, that sometimes they will put a warning label of, make sure that you get your pods out and that they're not warm so that they don't melt because it is cellulose and not plastic. But we've never had a problem with that, and we've been using them for probably 4 to 5 years now. So that's a really good choice. Y'all, if y'all hear nothing else from me and you want to make a clean switch, that is the thing, because it took me years and years. I even used to make my own laundry detergent when my kids were little, and I can't tell you how miserable I found that, to try to be going to work full-time, graduate school full-time, and taking care of 5 young kids and making my own laundry detergent. I had the best of intentions, but I don't know what I was thinking, and it was so miserable. In a different phase of life, it might be perfectly pleasant, but it was not. And so Drops is definitely the way to go. Using antibacterial products mindfully. So there is a time and a place. During COVID, yes, I kept all my clean products, but you better believe that I used my heavy industrial cleaning products when there was cause for concern. So I still have some of those things on hand. I just use them sparingly. Ensuring that your products are clean. Anything that you're putting on your skin, especially like the delicate areas around your face or on your hair, because of all of those pores, and your scalp is going to absorb that more. And so, particularly under your arms too, because you're shaving under your arms a lot, probably, then you're opening up areas on your skin where that can absorb more. And so, I would say switch out your deodorant first, your antiperspirant, for a natural deodorant. There's something called an armpit detox. If you get a smell or a rash, avoid baking soda in your natural deodorant, because that can be very irritating to people. So if you get a rash or an unpleasant smell when you switch to a deodorant like that, those are the two things you need to do. An armpit detox, which is bentonite clay and water and vinegar under your arms every night. Or two, you also probably need to look at not having a deodorant that has a baking soda in there. Those are my two big things that it took me years to kind of figure out. So those are my nuggets that you may not even realize how hard fought those were. But I learned my lesson. I had lots of rashes until I could finally switch to natural deodorant. But once I did, it was a life changer. Change out your home, car, and office. Change out things that are going to be moldy, and then check for mold. Even new builds, new home builds, new construction, a lot of times newer homes actually have more mold, just because they're so airtight with the new safety protocols and building protocols. So newer homes are just as likely to have mold, even ones that have never been lived in, because just think about how much they sit out in the weather before they're like what they call a dry in. We built our house. So I learned lots of construction terms I didn't know I needed to know. But once they dry in the house, then it's kind of, like wet proof, rain proof, weather proof. But before that, that wood sits out a long time getting wet, and some of it can have mold on it. And then buy organic coffee. Coffee is one of the highest sources of mold. Also, everything that people can have like allergies to, things like peanuts and corn and coffee, the things that people are most likely to be sensitive to or have allergy to, it's because they are going to also be high for things like mycotoxins or mold. So that's really kind of an interesting connection. So you want to nourish the body. Nourishing the body, it's the foundation of health. And so drinking good water, about half of your body weight in ounces a day of filtered water, but usually no more than 100 or maybe even 128 ounces. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you would drink 100 ounces of filtered water. Eating the rainbow, eating veggies most. So all the colors of the rainbow, because that's giving you the good antioxidants, minerals, vitamins, the nutrition you need. Eating a lot of full fiber carbohydrates is important. We always want to eat more than we supplement, and sometimes supplementation is needed. Most people in America are vitamin D, including me, vitamin D and B12 deficient. And so it's important to have those numbers monitored and to get some feedback on what you need to do in terms of diet and supplementation. Try not to drink your calories. That's easy to do. There's lots of fun beverages that give us lots of calories. So try not to do that. Count your chemicals as much as you count your calories. So it's not just about calories in, calories out, move your body. If we worked like that, if that math equation worked, then we would all be our ideal body weight, and we're not, including me. And so chemicals are just as important. You can consider intermittent fasting, but if you do that, I think it's really important to have a nutritional consult, especially for women, because fasting can be helpful, but it can also be something that creates harm to your metabolism, and just it has a big impact. So intermittent fasting is shown to be really, really healthy for most people, but there's so many different forms of intermittent fasting. I think you really need a nutritionist to walk you through what is best for you. Limiting sugar and other inflammatory foods, keeping a good food journal. I'd say most things in moderation work okay. And then try not to moralize food as being good or bad. We like to do that. We like to say, this is a healthy food, this is an unhealthy food, this is good for you, this is bad for you. But really, I think that creates kind of this unhealthy mindset around food, and it's certainly something that we want to be mindful of around young people. And then ask for professional help when needed. This is the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. and I listed the sources there. But the Environmental Working Group always has this available as well, and they have an Instagram account, which I enjoy following. And then y'all are going to have these slides. Marina's putting them in the chat. Weight loss, just be mindful that adipose tissue, or what we call fat tissue, stores toxins and chemicals in the body. So as you're losing weight, if you're on a weight loss journey, be mindful that you need to be drinking plenty of fluids and moving your body and sweating, because as those fat cells start to burst, then that means that the chemicals that they have in those fat cells are also getting out into the body. And so you want to be able to move, sweat, and hydrate so that that gets flushed out the normal pathway. So when you go to the bathroom, your bowel movements and your urine are taking those toxins out of the body with the help of your liver and your kidneys. So give it some help so that it can do that. Moving your body. These are some things that I like to do. I'm not going to go through every single one of the slides in as much detail, just because I want y'all to have this as a resource. I always put more in these slides than we could ever possibly talk about or for you to do, because it's just a matter of being consistent 3 to 5 days a week, right? It's being consistent is not doing something every day. Being consistent is probably 3 days a week, 4 days a week, most days than not. And so I just want y'all to pick a few things. So moving your body, you don't have to do all of these things, but you can do some of them. So like I've been parking in the back of the lot since my surgery. Well, now I have been, over the last 6 months, I've been taking the stairs on the way down to walk out to the back of the lot. Well, I have decided as of yesterday that next week when I come into work, I'm on the 3rd floor. And so there's like 49 steps to get to the top to my office. And so I'm going to start taking the stairs up and the stairs down unless I have my hands full. And so that's something that I'm going to add in. So you don't have to do every single one of these things, but swimming, walking outside in nature with a friend is the best for mental health and wellness. If you can do 22 minutes outside on grass under tree canopy with somebody that you like for 22 minutes and you're getting some sunshine, the best for your health and wellness and for your meditation and movement. It's such a good practice. And then just track your progress. Look back in the rearview mirror every once in a while and see how far you've come, because you probably haven't given yourself enough credit. So all of these others are really self-explanatory, but hopefully this will be a good menu for you for moving the body. Resting the body is so important to just create a sanctuary for yourself, and then prioritize some of these things. So limiting your technology use and your devices, avoiding blue light exposure. So that blue glow that you get from your devices is blue light, and that can really impact your circadian rhythm and your sleep quality. Making your bed and staying out of it, especially is important when you're at home, if you're having a work from home day or you're on the weekend. If you can just make your bed the first thing in the morning, it's a first win for the day, and then you're more likely to stay out of it, because active rest is really important for the body. And then going to bed between 9 and 10 so that you can be asleep by 10. I'm a night owl, so this one is hard for me, but it's really where you actually restore and heal your body the best between 10 and 12. So unfortunately for the night owls in the room, we're the ones that really have to think about that and think about how it's impacting our health so that we will do it, because it is hard. And then just remember that sleep is foundational along with nutrition. Sleep is foundational. It's as important as food. I don't know that you can pick a most important, because sleep you have to be able to heal and restore the body. Reducing EMF. So these are that electronic magnetic frequencies. So I don't allow my kids to have wireless devices, no wireless earbuds in the ears. With very few exceptions, like if they're going to do a workout, like my 16-year-old, when she goes to work out at the gym, yes, you can have wireless headphones, because I want you to be safe. But otherwise, no wireless anything on or near the head, because that can affect your brain health. Use the speaker function for your calls. Just be courteous and let people know that you're putting them on speakerphone. It's important to kind of get away from and disconnect from your phone. I don't let my kids use their devices while they're charging, because that causes more exposure. Using things in airplane mode is really helpful, especially for young kids. And then just consider your environment. Don't prop your laptop up on your your stomach or your belly, or have it in your lap for long periods of time, those kinds of things. Don't put your phone. I see a lot of athletic gear having the phone in the pocket on the side of their hip underneath some shorts or a skirt, or for women, there's pockets in your sports bra where you can put your phone in your breast tissue. That has gone away, I think, because we've had so much awareness about that, but there are still ones out there. Please, please, please don't put your cell phone in your bra or sports bra or tank or anything like that. Don't wear your phone on your body like that. It's not healthy. And that always, I'm like, do I say something to that person? I have a real conflict because I don't want to be nosy, but I also want people to be safe. So those are some things that you really want to take into consideration. And then these are some long-term exposure things about EMF radiation and what it leads to. Greenwashing, we mentioned what it is and how can you spot it. It's really about kind of recognizing brands that you know and trust. And for the most part, you still need to test individual products and scan individual products. But once you find a brand that you really like, usually most of their products are going to meet that test. And so it becomes much less overwhelming when you know, hey, I can go to Beauty Counter and get my makeup. I can go to Ever Eden and get my skincare. I can go to Drops and get my laundry and dish detergent. And then that way you're not having to constantly think about, is this an okay product to use? This is the website I mentioned, the Environmental Working Group website. They also have an app and it's all free. It's a really great source. It's not perfect, but it's very helpful. And then some things that you can consider just as we're thinking about our own health and thinking about the environmental health of our planet, things like, kind of this take on Maslow's hierarchy of use what you have, borrow, swap, thrift, make, and then if you have to, buy. And then there's other things like we can rethink, we can refuse something, we can reduce our consumption, we can reuse, we can refurbish, we can repair, repurpose, recycle, and even things like that I added, regift, recover, resell, return, or let it rot, let it return to the ground. So we can make things into mulch, or we can, make things into a composting pot. And that's really, really helpful, especially for people who garden. So lots of other fun ideas to kind of help with our environmental considerations, because a lot of our exposures come through medications that have been flushed down the toilet and now they're in our drinking water. So a lot of the water sources, municipal water sources, will have levels of antibiotics or antipsychotics in them because they've been flushed in the toilet and has gotten in our water system. And so, or it's in our trash. And so there's responsible ways to dispose of those things. It's just important to be mindful. This is a product swaps checklist, just some places to start. And just pick one. So when you run out of your shampoo, go and pick a healthier shampoo. When you run out of your body wash, go pick a healthier body wash. Don't try to throw everything out at once. That can get overwhelming and very expensive. And then here's some other products using dryer balls instead of dryer sheets. Drops, like I said, these are the little packets that you can get. Glass, Branch Basics is a great cleaning product. Lume is a great deodorant. I actually use Curie now, Curie, and it's a spray that I really, really like. And my girls use it and like it too. So we all have a different scent. It comes in a pack of 3 deodorants that you can try as like a sample, but they're full size. They're tiny, so you think this is not going to last. I wear it every day and it lasts me about 3 to 4 months. So it lasts much longer than you think. When you get the little bottle, you're like, this is going to last 2 weeks, but it does go a long way. Thieves toothpaste, or I really like Risewell now. I try to avoid essential oils in my toothpaste now that I know better, because sometimes that can erode or make your teeth sensitive. So, Thieves is a great option for some people, but if you have sensitive teeth, try to avoid essential oils in your toothpaste. Having something like a Hydro Flask is really helpful. There's been a lot of concerns around the safety of these kinds of bottles, particularly Stanley's, with having like lead or different chemicals in them. But Hydro Flask has pretty consistently been an okay product. Beauty Counter, and then swapping out your pans for a nonstick version to an actual, skillet, all-clad skillet. It's very intimidating and very expensive, but it's healthier. And then you've got things like a water filter, good Epsom salts, essential oils, clean hygiene products for sanitary pads and tampons is really, really important because of being in a sensitive spot that's going to have a lot of like surface area for skin. That is a huge source of pesticides because of the cotton that's being used for these products not being organic. Celtic sea salt's great. Beauty Counter, any kind of mineral sunscreen is always going to be a little bit better. Dr. Bronner's, this is their shaving cream that I use, and then their hand soap, and then organic or thrifting is always going to be a good option. Ditching air fresheners, plug-ins, melts, reed diffusers. Everybody take those trees off of their rearview mirror. All of the plug-ins, like please throw your plug-ins in the trash. It's really, really unhealthy for lung disease. It's as unhealthy as smoking, recent studies have found. And then here are some more resources as we wrap up. A couple of people that have been really helpful to me on my journey: Instant Loss, Crunchy and Curious, the app for EWG, and then some hashtags that you can follow on social media to get more information. The Think Dirty app is more product-based like EWG, and then Sift is more food-based for better, safer, clean products for eating. And then we would love your feedback. We're always developing our classes, so if there's things that you would like us to include, we have even more in part 2. This was just a little bit of an introduction, so we would love to hear from y'all. And then I love this quote for most things in life: start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Arthur Ashe. We would love for you to follow us on our social media channels. Got lots of great content there. The ladies in the Wellness and Work Life office are amazing. Carolyn and Miranda here with us, and Sierra. And then here is my contact information. So I'm going to pop this out. I know we're coming close to time, but I'm happy to stay on as always and answer your questions and see what you have in the chat. Yes, Carly, there will be wellness dates for summer and for fall. Lots of dates in the fall and then 2 in the summer. Glad y'all enjoyed. Yes, lots to digest. Go ahead, Miranda.
I was going to say there was one question that was asked earlier about what literature is it? I think it was talking about your first slide.
The very first slide. Jessica, if you don't mind, will you give us a little bit more detail? I'm happy to answer.
And then what is earthing was another one.
Yeah, so earthing is almost like grounding, that you can use those interchangeably. Yes, I know you can see the screen, but if I don't have it here, then I have to turn and then you can't see me. But thank you for telling me, Danny. So earthing is a lot like just putting your feet on grass or out on the ground. When you go to the beach and you put your feet on the sand, then you're earthing, you're grounding, and it's all about the electron exchange, and it really helps to change the way that the body perceives stress. And there's a lot of great literature out there about it. If you go to the UA library database, you can do a quick search, and there's tons of information about grounding or earthing. But if you want to do it, just slip your shoes off, take your socks off if you've got socks on, and just go stand for 10 minutes in the sun with your feet in the grass, and that is grounding. And if you feel better, it's because it's relieving stress. What literature? Jessica, there are a ton of articles, of peer-reviewed based articles about fluoride being a neurotoxin. If you do a quick search on the database or a Google Scholar search, there's tons out there. And I'm happy to send you anything. If you want to follow up with me, I'm happy to send you some information as well. All right, Miranda, did you see anything else that I need to?
I think that was all. That was all the questions.
Awesome. Well, I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for joining us.
All right, y'all have a good afternoon.